Following the video on my Virpil setup showcasing how I assigned the axes on my dual stick setup, you requested a more in-depth look at some of my key bindings, so here it is. A small disclaimer to start, there is no perfect setup. Everybody has a personal preference, and since I'm still so new to Star Citizen, I'm convinced there is essential stuff missing from my setup still as well. Here's another quick look at my setup first. Mounted via Monster Tech mounts, we have a half keyboard on the left, two Virpil Constellation Alpha sticks on either side, and my mouse on the right. Let's pop right into Arena Commander and I'll show you what's what. I'll have the joystick visualizer running in the center for you as well, and I'll have footage of my Virpils overlaying in the corners. At the end of the video, I'll scroll through all of my bindings so you can look at them while listening to some Pedro, and you'll also find a link to my bindings XML in the description below. Also a gentle reminder that in Star Citizen, I made sure to remove all of the joystick dead zones, and I made sure that all of the axes are set to a complete linear setup. Let's start with the left stick. I have the X-axis bound to strafing and the Y-axis to forward and backwards, which basically simulates WASD movement on a keyboard. And because of the incredible precision, again, both of these axes are set to a 1-to-1 linear motion. Vertical up and down is controlled by the analog pinky triggers on either stick. The left stick controls vertical up, which clicks really well with me because it behaves like the collective on a helicopter. Pull it to go up. Now, while this analog pinky trigger has lots of precision already, it doesn't have a very long throw, meaning it is relatively short. I wanted more precision around the beginning of the axis to allow for more precise gentle thrust while giving up some precision near the top end, since if you're going over 50%, you're probably hammering the thrust anyway. Here's a quick look at my Virpil panel showing the non-linearity in the axes. Gentler control near the start for smooth takeoff and hovering on planets, and more aggressive control at the top end. The analog pinky trigger on the right stick then controls a vertical down with the same non-linear setup. Again, the non-linearity is not there because it needs it, but because I like it. That's what allows me to do the very fine altitude control, especially on planets, and it just allows you to fly a lot smoother, which I very much enjoy. With the twist axes locked on the left stick, let's continue on and look at the buttons. As I fly decoupled about 99% of the time, a good setup for coupled mode, cruise control, and speed limiters is very important. I use the two-way hat switch on the side of the stick for this. Pressing down on the hat switch will toggle coupled mode on and off. And pushing the hat switch away from me enables cruise control, so that it is easy for me to enable a continuous cruise by simply pressing the hat switch and pushing it forward. This is important because obviously when you're in coupled mode, and especially on planets, you would slow down every time you release the stick, so being able to go into an easy cruise is very important. Now pressing the hat again will disable coupled mode and cruise automatically, so I can just take manual control again. Pulling on the hat switch will enable the speed limiter, which is by default set on the limit of the red zone, which is different per ship. This will help avoid overspeeding, which is especially convenient during combat to avoid that really extreme jousting by overspeeding. The same hat switch on the right stick allows me to increase or decrease the speed limiter. I rarely use this. Moving on to the other buttons on the top of the stick then. The top hat switch I use for quantum travel. Pressing down on the hat switch will toggle the quantum system on and off, and pushing forward on the hat switch will enable travel to my target. Left, right, and down I still have unassigned for future things. The lower hat switch I use for power management. Pressing down on the hat switch resets power, while left, right, and down set max to the respective systems. The red button deploys chaff, and the black button enables mining mode. Now here's a bit of a controversial one for you. I personally enjoy using weapons via my left stick, so that they don't interrupt my aiming with the right stick. The left trigger's first stage will fire weapon group 1, while squeezing harder will also trigger weapon group 2. Basically, if I squeeze once, I can fire my first set of weapons, and if I squeeze harder, it will fire everything at once. There is yet another trigger, which is a flip up and down toggle switch. Pulling that in will enable missile operator mode. It's important that you set the toggle pull button to switch in the Virpil software, so that it doesn't hold down any buttons when you pull or release the trigger. Instead, it will do a momentary button press on both the in and out of the trigger, allowing it to work with the missile operator mode toggle binding in the game. After you toggle into missile operator mode, squeezing the trigger to the next stage will then fire missiles. The right stick top hat switch is used to switch between available missiles by pushing left or right, and increase or decrease the amount of missiles to fire by pushing up and down. Pushing down on the hat switch itself will reset the number of missiles to default again. Very important then is the two-way hat switch on the right side of the stick, controlled with my thumb. Pulling this one to the left will toggle the gear, while pushing to the right will toggle VTOL mode, both conveniently on the same hat switch. Pressing down on the hat remains unassigned. The mini joystick, the scroll wheel, and the pinky button are also unassigned for future things. And that's everything on the left stick, and a few things already explained on the right, so let's stick with the right stick now and first look at the axes. The X-axis is used for rolling and Y is used for pitch, just like an aeroplane or a helicopter. Both axes are again with a 1-to-1 linear setup. There's so much precision here, you really don't need any non-linearity. The twist axis on the right stick is unlocked and used for yaw. The Virpil sticks have a really nice yaw control, which feels stiff and centers really strongly. And again, the precision here is also really good, which means there is no need for any non-linearity. Now, there's a lot of people asking me whether rudder pedals would improve the immersion here, and I've always wanted to try. Following my previous video, Virpil was in touch, mentioning they might be interested in some form of collaboration in the future, so this is your opportunity to support me with this by mentioning below in the comments that you would really like me to try some rudder pedals. Maybe somebody from Virpil is listening. Okay, that's the axes covered on the right stick. Let's take a look at the remaining buttons. Now, to come back to the controversy, the right trigger I use for boost. This is a leftover from my Elite keyboard and mouse days where I controlled boost and cargo scoop using the mouse buttons. Right trigger for boost just feels natural for me. You might want to swap this around again and use the right trigger for weapons and the left trigger for boost. The second stage has no function right now and I'm keeping it free for future things. The third toggle trigger I use for space brake. It's actually a really nice handbrake feature this way. I typically enable coupled mode and pull the handbrake when I want to make sure that I remain stationary regardless of what my left stick is doing. That's what happens if you hold the handbrake. Your left stick can do whatever it wants, but it'll remain stationary. Of course, I use coupled mode in combination with it because then if I'm on a planet, there won't be any gravity pulling me down either. Moving on, the red button deploys a decoy and the black button toggles scanning mode. The lower hat switch is used for pinging and scanning. Pushing down on the hat will ping, while pressing left and right increases and decreases the scanning angles. The scroll wheel I use for zooming in and out of the view. And the lower two-way hat switch controlled with the thumb is used for all things targeting. Pushing it down will target and untarget the object in front of me, and pushing it right will toggle ESP. I typically fly with ESP off because again the Virpils have so much precision, I really don't want ESP. It's quite annoying how currently in game ESP is always on. It'd be nice if there was a way to keep this default off. Pushing it left is still free for future things, as is the pinky button below. And I think that's everything for the sticks, so here's a quick look at my half keyboard. Everything on it is still changing frequently, but here are the things I have set up currently. For on foot, I use WASD for walking, space for jumping, C for crouch, and X for prone. F is interact, both on foot and in ship, and T is for torch, or light, both on foot and in ship as well. Numbers 1 to 5 are on foot item selections, R is for reload, and while in the ship I use Q for system power, W for weapon power, E for engine power, and S for shield power. R is to exit seat. This is Y by default, and I would have left it there, but the Y is cut off from the half keyboard, so that's why I opted to change it to the R. T again is light, X is map. It's just a button I had free and left over so I could access the map easily. The V for Victor is third person view, and that's all there is. Here's a quick list then of all my key bindings. Enjoy Pedro, and I'll see you in the next video.